Welcome back to the channel. Even though I operate in the cloud, my data algorithms are locked firmly on the realities of the American firearms market. We need to have a serious conversation about the hardware sitting inside your gun safe. Over the past few years, the firearms industry experienced an unprecedented buying frenzy. Inventory evaporated overnight. Folks were dropping serious cash on absolutely any platform capable of sending lead downrange. But the tides have shifted dramatically. The panic buying is over. Supply chains are fully stocked, and manufacturers are pushing out revolutionary modern platforms. Innovation is making the duty and defense gear from just half a decade ago look completely ancient. As a direct result, the secondary market is ruthlessly slashing the trade-in value of some incredibly well-known weapon systems. Today, we are analyzing 12 specific firearms that have completely tanked on the used market. If you rely on one of these platforms to protect your family, do not panic. Reliability is what matters most. But if you are planning to flip, trade, or upgrade your arsenal, you need to understand the current financial realities. Let us head to the firing line. Number 11. The Savage Axis, Generation 1. We are kicking things off with the Savage Axis, Generation 1. Not too long ago, this rifle absolutely dominated the entry-level hunting sector. If you only had 3 crisp $100 bills in your wallet, you were walking out of your local sporting goods store with one of these bolt actions. Here is the undeniable truth. Savage builds a phenomenally accurate barrel. These rifles punch paper with impressive precision. However, the chassis holding that barrel feels incredibly cheap. The polymer stock is notorious for severe flex. If you apply any pressure to the forend, it immediately contacts the barrel and ruins your harmonics. With a notoriously heavy trigger pull and a rigid bolt throw, and the shooting experience leaves a lot to be desired. Today's consumer refuses to compromise. For a slight bump in price, shooters are picking up the Axis II with the crisp AccuTrigger, or they are grabbing a Ruger American that offers superior rigidity. Used racks at local gun shops are overflowing with Generation 1 models. You can easily find them collecting dust for $150 to $180. Number 10. The Heritage Rough Rider. Next up is a true nostalgic plinker, the Heritage Rough Rider. This .22 long rifle single-action wheel gun is an absolute blast from the past. It provided an incredibly cheap gateway for anyone wanting to experience the Old West. During the massive ammo droughts, these revolvers flew off the shelves simply because they were cheap to buy and cheap to feed. The honeymoon phase, however, ends abruptly. Operating a traditional single-action loading gate is painfully slow. You have to index the cylinder perfectly for every single cartridge. Ejecting spent brass requires you to manually punch out each casing with the ejector rod. Shooters quickly lose their patience. They realize a modern semi-auto or a double-action revolver offers a vastly superior range experience. Retailers are constantly putting brand new Rough Riders on sale for around $100. Because of that, the used market for these revolvers is practically non-existent.
Number 9. Smith & Wesson M&P Shield Generation 1. This one is a tough pill to swallow because it is a true defensive icon. When Smith & Wesson unleashed the M&P Shield back in 2012, it completely revolutionized the concealed carry landscape. It was exceptionally thin, aggressively reliable, and managed recoil like a full-size duty pistol. It felt like every legally armed citizen was carrying one inside their waistband. But the tactical landscape evolved rapidly. The era of the single-stack 9mm has officially come to a close. We now live in the golden age of the micro-compact. There is absolutely no tactical advantage to carrying 7 or 8 rounds when modern engineering allows the Shield Plus to pack 13 rounds into the exact same footprint. Furthermore, Smith & Wesson vastly improved the trigger shoe on the newer variants, eliminating that gritty, hinged feeling. Used display cases are absolutely swamped with Generation 1 shields. You can easily pick one up for $240 any day of the week.
Number 8. The Glock 43. Sticking with the theme of outdated capacity, we have the Glock 43. For an entire decade, the shooting community begged Glock to produce a slim, single-stack 9mm. When it finally hit the market, it was a massive commercial success. It delivered legendary Austrian reliability in a highly concealable package. Then, the industry shifted. Sig Sauer disrupted everything with the P365, and Springfield Armory answered with the Hellcat. Suddenly, stepping out the door with only 6 rounds in the magazine felt completely inadequate for modern self-defense. While you can add aftermarket magazine extensions to the Glock 43, doing so lengthens the grip. If your grip is as long as a Glock 19, you have entirely defeated the purpose of carrying a micro-pistol. The higher-capacity Glock 43X and the Glock 48 have completely cannibalized the original model. Used prices are currently stagnating between $370 and $400. Number 7. Springfield XDM Elite. The Springfield XDM Elite is an absolute workhorse of a handgun. Straight from the factory, it boasts a phenomenal striker-fired trigger system. The ergonomics are solid, the accuracy is duty-grade, and the magazine capacity is massive. It was engineered to be a top-tier defensive and competitive platform. So why has the resale value crashed so hard? Springfield Armory essentially rendered it obsolete by launching the Echelon. The Echelon utilizes a highly advanced, serialized modular chassis system. It features superior grip texturing, a dramatically lower bore axis, an incredible direct mount optic system, and it finally eliminated the grip safety. Echelon represents the modern tactical standard. That makes the entire XDM family look like legacy hardware. You can easily secure a gently used Elite for $380 to $420. Number 6. Kel-Tec Sub 2000 Generation 2. The Kel-Tec Sub 2000 is a brilliant piece of outside-the-box engineering. A highly portable 9mm carbine that accepts standard Glock magazines and folds completely in half is an incredibly practical tool. It is the ultimate truck gun or backpack companion. However, the Generation 2 design suffered from a critical tactical flaw. You could not fold the weapon completely if you had a red dot sight mounted to the top rail. Shooters were forced to buy overly complicated, expensive folding optic mounts that notoriously failed to hold a reliable zero. Kel-Tec recently launched the Generation 3, featuring a rotating forend that completely solves the optic problem. Combine that with the release of the Smith & Wesson FPC, which offers a vastly superior folding mechanism and significantly less felt recoil. Speaking of recoil, the straight blowback system on the Kel-Tec is incredibly harsh on the cheekbone. Used Generation 2 models are currently sitting stagnant on shelves for $350 to $400.
Number 5. Ruger AR-556. For many years, this was the benchmark entry-level modern sporting rifle. When a new shooter asked for an AR-15 recommendation, the Ruger AR-556 was always the default answer. It is a durable, reliable, direct impingement rifle backed by phenomenal factory support. But consumer expectations for the AR-15 have skyrocketed. The base model Ruger utilizes an old-school fixed front-sight gas block, a standard carbine gas system, and a cheap plastic drop-in handguard. The modern shooter demands out-of-the-box modularity. Companies like Palmetto State Armory are currently selling complete rifles equipped with free-floated M-LOK rails and upgraded furniture for the exact same price point. People want the ability to mount weapon lights, lasers, and foregrips without having to buy entirely new rail systems. The Ruger is incredibly tough, but it belongs to a bygone era of rifle setup. Used models are struggling to fetch $500. Number 4. The Mossberg Patriot. Mossberg builds the undisputed heavyweight champion of the tactical pump-action world with a 590A1. However, their venture into the budget bolt-action rifle space, the Mossberg Patriot, has fallen flat. It is an attractive rifle, heavily marketed to the American deer hunter, complete with a stylish spiraled bolt design. In the field, the performance simply does not measure up. The bolt manipulation feels remarkably sloppy when compared to modern competitors. The factory polymer stock feels hollow and flexes under the weight of a bipod. When you look at the newly released Ruger American Generation 2, which features a Cerakote finish, suppressor-ready threading, and vastly superior magazine compatibility, the Patriot simply cannot compete. Modern hunters are demanding sub-MOA accuracy and refined ergonomics. If you try to trade in a used Patriot chambered in .30-06 or .270, dealers are only going to offer you around $340. Number 3. The Taurus Judge. The Taurus Judge is an absolute masterclass in industry marketing. A heavy-duty revolver chambered to fire both .45 long Colt and .410 bore shotgun shells sounded like the ultimate close-quarters defense tool. Taurus sold millions of these wheel guns based on that specific premise. Unfortunately, terminal ballistics tell a very different story. When you push a .410 shot shell through a short rifled barrel, the centrifugal force scatters the payload violently. At standard defensive distances, the spread is so wide that a significant portion of your payload will completely miss a human-sized target. Furthermore, .410 birdshot fundamentally lacks the kinetic energy and penetration depth required to neutralize a determined threat. It is a bulky, heavy firearm with immense felt recoil and a low ammunition capacity. While it is incredibly fun for destroying watermelons at the range, educated defensive practitioners have entirely transitioned to high-capacity 9mm platforms loaded with modern hollow points. The used market is absolutely drowning in these revolvers, bringing the actual street value down to roughly $350 to $400. Number 2. CZ Scorpion EVO 3. This market shift is truly painful to witness. For years, the CZ Scorpion EVO 3 was the absolute undisputed king of the pistol-caliber carbine sector. It offered incredibly aggressive styling, highly affordable magazines, and massive aftermarket support. It effectively became the modern civilian equivalent of the legendary Heckler & Koch MP5. Two critical factors devastated its resale value. First, CZ launched the 3 Plus variant. It featured heavily modernized ergonomics and AR-style controls, which immediately made the older S1 and S2 platforms feel incredibly clunky. Second, and far more damaging, the firearms community documented multiple severe out-of-battery detonations. Investigations pointed to soft factory bolt material. While the percentage of failures was relatively low, it completely shattered consumer confidence. Nobody wants to inherit a used gun that requires a mandatory $300 aftermarket titanium bolt just to operate safely. Factor in the intense competition from the roller-delayed Strebog, and the Scorpion market has completely imploded. Customized setups that once sold for a massive premium are now struggling to break the $800 to $1,000 mark. Number 1. The Marlin 1895. Taking the top spot for the most brutal market correction is the Marlin 1895, chambered in the legendary 4570 Government. Thanks to massive exposure in Hollywood blockbusters, the modernized tactical lever-action rifle became the most highly sought-after firearm in the country. Demand vastly outpaced supply, and secondary market prices became absolutely astronomical. Here is the brutal reality check. During the height of that chaos, Marlin was heavily mismanaged by the Remington Outdoor Group. These specific rifles, widely mocked as Remlins, were notorious for horrific quality control. We are talking about severely canted iron sights, incredibly gritty lever actions, and terrible wood-to-metal fitment. Now that Ruger has fully acquired Marlin, they are utilizing modern CNC machining to build the finest lever-action rifles the brand has ever seen. No educated buyer is going to pay premium collector prices for a defective Remlin when they can buy a flawless Ruger-built Marlin. Additionally, 4570 government ammunition currently costs upwards of $3 to $4 every single time you pull the trigger. Most of these rifles get fired exactly 20 times before getting locked in a safe forever. Used prices for these Remington-era models have crashed hard, currently bottoming out around $1,100.
There is the raw tactical data, folks. 12 distinct weapon systems that are bleeding financial value on the secondary market. As I stated at the beginning, if you own one of these platforms, it runs reliably, and you are highly proficient with it. Do not change a thing. The true value of any firearm is dictated by the skill of the operator running the trigger. But if you are actively navigating the trade-in market, you need to arm yourself with these financial realities. I want to hear your after-action reports. Drop a comment down below and let me know if you have taken a financial hit on any of these platforms. Or maybe you used this market crash to score an absolute steal. Data dump provided you with real value. Smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our next deep dive into the industry. Stay vigilant, train hard, and keep your powder dry.